Здравствуйте, welcome back to Russian Through Poems and Paintings. Today is day 113, and we're just continuing with more prefixes, right? So, fortunately, we know that we're doing kind of the same thing here for the next several lessons, right? Just kind of rather mechanically adding these prefixes to the base pairs we saw the other day. None of that really is going to change. We're going to be watching for the same spelling issues like do we need a hard sign? Do we need to insert a vowel, right, if our prefix happens to end in a consonant, right? So watching for those things, but just learning new prefixes and what they mean. If we look at a quick painting, Provo de Novobranza by Repin, something like the seeing off of Novobranец. A Novobranец, you see that has to do with novi, like newly, nova, and Branyets, which has to do with the verb brać, right? This is someone who's been taken into the army. He's been newly recruited. He's a new recruit, right? And so back in the imperial days, that was often a kind of death sentence in the sense that even if you weren't killed in battle, you were expected to serve for a very long time. And for that reason, when someone got recruited like this, the people kind of assumed that they were saying farewell forever, right? They didn't expect to see the person again. And so that's why people are so sad in this picture. Новобранец– это крестьянин, которого берут в армию. Right? A новобранец, a new recruit, is a peasant whom they are taking into the army, literally. Он уходит надолго, а может быть и навсегда. He's departing. Okay, here's our new prefix today. Уходит. Он уходит, we could say. Meaning he's departing, he's going far away. Надолго, right, for a long time, а может быть и навсегда, maybe forever. Его семья его провожает. His family is seeing him off. Есть такая пословица «долгие проводы, лишние слезы». That's just a little saying, right, meaning literally long seeings off. I don't even know how to translate that literally, right? If you spend a long time seeing someone off, all you get are extra tears, right? Superfluous tears, meaning it's going to happen anyway, right? Right? Why cry about it? Why drag it out? Okay, so our first prefix today is u, meaning far away. Okay, so we're going to see a couple of prefixes that have to do with going away. This is going far away, sort of so far away that we can't see the person. We don't really know where they are. They're gone. So, for example, я не знаю, где она ушла. Okay, I don't know where she is. She's gone. She's out of here. We have no idea where she is. Воздушный шарик улетел в небо. The balloon, literally the little air ball or something, the little air sphere. Воздушный шарик улетел в небо. It flew away into the sky, right? So it's long gone. Or официант унес тарелку. The waiter carried the plate away. He took it away, and let's say he carried it off into the kitchen or wherever, right? It's gone. Okay, so there is a verb of conveyance, unios. Okay, now since this prefix is a vowel, we're not going to have any spelling difficulties, right? We don't need to add a mobile vowel. We don't need to add a soft sign, certainly. So reasonably straightforward. Okay, let's look at a few pairs here. And again, we're forming these in the exact same way we learned before. There's nothing new. All right, the only thing new here is the new prefix. So let's say, let's use уходить, уйти. Don't worry, they'll leave soon. Okay, so again, we're picking the form based purely on aspect, right? So let's see, they'll leave soon sounds like a one-time future action. And so we'll use уйти. And remember, that's going to conjugate basically like идти, right? Except we're writing и краткое. Не волнуйся, don't worry, they will soon return. Sorry, they'll soon leave. Они скоро уйдут. Уйдут. Again, note the и краткое there. Уйдут. Number 2, now we're departing by vehicle. Уезжать, уехать. We're leaving tomorrow on a trip. Okay, present tense. It's one of those kind of immediate future situations where we're using the present, even though we could use the future, and literally maybe we should use the future. So let's use уезжать. Мы завтра уезжаем. Okay, next, to run away, to run off. Убегать, убежать. He always runs off when he sees me. Okay, present tense. We're going to use убегать. Он всегда убегает, когда меня видит. Number 4, улетать, улететь, to fly away, right, far away. The bird will fly away from the cat. Okay, it will fly away, a one-time event, that's future, so we're going to conjugate улететь, right, the perfective. And here there's a, well, not a huge typo, but we have plural in the example, птицы, right? Let's say the birds will fly away from the cat. Птицы улетят. Птицы улетят от кошки. 5, уходить, уйти, same verb again. Now here, we'll see this also as we're going through here. Since we're talking about verbs of motion, in the vast majority of cases, we're going to be speaking very literally, right, of motion in space. So we're getting sort of the most basic meanings of these prefixes, right, their spatial meanings. Now, of course, a lot of them have taken on additional, more figurative meanings. And then on top of that, a lot of them are used in little kind of phrasal verbs, just little kind of set phrases. So for example, here's an example. Уходить, уйти can be followed by на пенсию, meaning you're going away onto your pension, literally, meaning you're retiring. So that's one way to say retiring. So let's say our chef, our boss, has finally retired. Okay, he has retired. We're gonna make that past tense in Russian. Он ушел, right? Okay, remember уйти. It's basically working like идти back in the unprefixed form, so we know that was irregular in the past. Идти became шел. Here we need to keep шел and simply add the prefix. So we get наш шеф, наконец, ушел на пенсию. 6, уводить, увести, to lead away, right? So here's a conveyance verb, right? We're leading someone away. Mom led me away from the angry dog. Okay, we got to be careful with past tense with these obstruents, right? And here we've got perfective situation, right? She led me away. Sounds like a one-time completed event. So we're going to use увести. And remember, that's the one where the de drops out, right? So we get, in the masculine, I meant to say увел, it would be in the masculine. And then feminine, since we have mama увела, увела. Right, and that's that one verb of conveyance where, again, think to carry away would be, let's stick with feminine, унесла. To drive away would be увезла, right, where we keep the se or the ve. But with увести, the de drops out. So that's kind of a bit of an exception there, and we get увела. A very common пословица «Работа не волк, в лес не убежит». Very common, right? Work isn't a wolf. It will not run off into the forest. And that basically means something like the work's not going anywhere. We can get to it later. There's no big hurry to take care of it because it's not going to run off into the forest, right? Okay, page 70 now. Another prefix, от. Okay, от is kind of like oo. It means going away, but it means going just a bit away, right? So oo, think of oo as more drastic, right? Someone's departing. They've gone. We have no idea where they are really. I mean, not necessarily. They're out of eyesight. We can't see where they are. But what if we wanted to say something like, well, someone stepped out for a minute, or they've stepped away from the computer, or they're away from their desk, right? It's not that they've gone home. It's not that they've run off, God knows where, but they've gone a bit away, right? That would be от. От. Okay, now we've got to be careful with this one a little bit because it ends in a consonant, right? So we're going to have to watch for adding a mobile vowel, for adding a hard sign. And on top of that, look how we've written this up. От, and then we've got the little gray box, от plus genitive. That means that this prefix, right, a verb with this prefix is going to be followed with от. And we'll see this fairly often, right, where the prefix will kind of be repeated in the form of a preposition, right? A lot of them can be prefixes and prepositions. So we'll repeat the prefix as a preposition, and then it'll be followed by whatever noun in the genitive, right? So look at the example. Он отошел от компьютера на несколько минут. Он скоро вернется. Okay, he stepped away from the computer. Он отошел, and then from the computer, от, right? We need от компьютера. Он отошел от компьютера. Okay, let's make a few pairs, and we have a clue here in the Russian, and let's try to give the full aspectual pair, comparing these three prefixes that are somewhat similar in meaning, right? Vui literally meaning out, u meaning to go far away, and ot a bit away. So they all have to do with kind of departures of one kind or another. Okay, so to depart on a long trip by vehicle. Well, let's look at the clue. Мой брат солдат, он уезжает надолго. My brother's a soldier, he's leaving for a long time. He's departing. Okay, so let's get the pair. That'll be уезжать, уехать. Okay, to move a bit away in a vehicle, right? So you've got a car. Let's say you need to move it a little bit, kind of repark, move it away from the fire hydrant or something like that, right? We're just going a little bit away. For example, мы отъехали немного от подъезда. So we drove a bit away from the entrance. Think about moving the car, you're blocking the entrance or whatever. Okay, so that's not уезжать, that's отъезжать, right? And note this, the hard sign, right? Отъезжать, отъехать. Okay, number 3, to drive out of a garage, for example. Okay, that's going to be вы, right? Машина выехала из гаража на улицу. Okay, so that's going to be выезжать, выехать, выехать. Remember the stress on the perfective is always going to be on the вы, no matter what the form is. 4, to leave on foot, and we're going far away. Например, шефа нет уже в офисе, он ушел. Okay, the boss isn't in the office anymore, he's gone for the day, right, or whatever, he's long gone. Он ушел. Okay, the pair would be уходить, уйти. Number 5, to step away just a bit. Okay, that's going to be от, right? Профессор редко отходит от доски, right? The professor rarely steps away from the blackboard. That's kind of his comfort blanket. I certainly feel a lot safer when I'm near the blackboard. Okay, and I've got my chalk in hand, right? Okay, отходить, отойти. Okay, now there's an et verb, so we've got to be sure we insert the mobile vowel о in that perfective, right? Отходить, отойти, right, with the о inserted. Now again, it's worth pointing out that if we didn't insert that or there, the result would be literally unpronounceable, right? There would be really pretty much no way to pronounce that ikratkaya without a mobile vowel inserted. Okay, let's take a few more pairs with от and think about what they mean and just use them in a sentence. So отходить, отойти, that's to step away on foot. Студенты купили билеты в музей и blank от кассы. Okay, we're in the past tense. Students bought tickets into the museum, literally. That's a куда expression. Билеты в музей. И, okay, and we've got a little sequence here. They bought the tickets and then they stepped away from the kassa, the little ticket booth, ticket window. И отошли, отошли. Okay, so there's shli, there's that irregular past, and remember we added the mobile vowel in the infinitive ataiti. That means it's going to hang around in the past tense forms as well for this iti verb. Они купили билеты и отошли. 2. Отходить, отойти, so same verb. Здесь народу много. There are a lot of people here. Подождем, эти туристы скоро blank от памятника. So let's wait a bit. These tourists soon blank from the monument. Okay, sounds like that's future tense, right? Let's wait a bit and they'll walk away. They'll step away from the monument and give someone else a chance to see it. Okay, so let's work with ataiti. Let's think for a moment. This can be tricky. This is probably the hardest kind of verb here to conjugate. Think about iti. Third plural would be idut. So ataidut, ataidut. Okay, we're keeping the mobile vowel. We're writing ikratke, ataidut, at памятника. 3. Собака blank от ежика и странно посмотрела на него. Okay, so we've got a hedgehog. The dog is running a bit away from the hedgehog. Let's say he tried to sniff it and he got his nose, poked. Okay, and so he steps away a bit, or runs away a bit, right? Runs a bit away, and then looks strangely at the hedgehog. Okay. Sabaka, and here we have a sequence, right? So it ran a bit away, and then it looked at the hedgehog. So perfective sequence. Sabaka Отбежала от ежика и странно посмотрела на него. 4. Отлетать, отлететь. Right? To fly a bit away. Right? Now again, note how we're kind of unpacking these, right? To fly a bit away, right? That's literally what this verb means. And so again, depending on the context, maybe you could think of some other way to capture that in good English, right? Okay, and this is one of the dumbest examples. Sometimes it can be a little bit hard to think of these examples, but what happens when your wheels fly off the car, right? You've got a loose wheel and it flies off the car, God forbid, right? And you die boch, right? God forbid. Well, we'd say it flew off, right? Now, why not ulitai here? Because that would imply that your wheel came off and it went like shooting off into the stratosphere or something, or something crazy like that. That doesn't sound very probable. It's just coming loose and it's falling off the car and you've got a problem. Okay, so let's say it's very dangerous when wheels fly off of cars. Очень опасно, когда колеса отлетают от автомобилей. Okay, that just present tense. We're making kind of a general statement. Yeah, it's dangerous when tires fly off of cars. Отлетают. Wheels, sorry. Колеса. Okay, number 5. Отвозить, отвезти. Okay, we're taking by vehicle a bit away, right? We're driving something or someone a bit away. So let's say after the arrest, the policeman drove away the drunk driver. После аварии полицейские отвезли пьяного водителя. Okay, an unfortunate example there, but that's the verb you would use for, if someone's arrested and they're thrown in the paddy wagon or whatever, the police car, and off they go, right? Well, that's отвезти. Okay, look at the one example, a painting with obviously a biblical theme, the Тайная вечеря, meaning the Last Supper, or literally the Secret Supper, right? They're kind of in hiding, right? So in the Russian tradition, this is called the Secret Supper, so to speak. Вечеря is an archaicism, right? This is kind of from Church Slavonic. Okay, человек в тени, Иуда. The person in the shadow there is Иуда, Judas. Он отошел от Христа и остальных апостолов, right? What's happened? He stepped away, right? You see, he's walked a bit away from Christ and the other apostles. Христос только что предсказал, что Иуда предаст его. Christ has just predicted that Judas will betray him, right? Предаст. By the way, there's an example of a preposition. Well, we saw it already, actually. Pierre. We're going to talk more about it. It means across. Prea, the form we see here, is kind of an archaic form of pierre. It's the Church Slavonic form of pierre. And we'll see this in a few cases, that some of these prefixes have little variants that were native to Church Slavonic, and they've hung around in certain Russian verbs that think about verbs you might see in the Bible, right? That you might see in a Church Slavonic, text, like a biblical text or a liturgical text. And so a lot of words like that have a bit of a moral dimension to them, right? Like here. So for example, there's a verb in Russian, передать, which means like to pass the salt, to pass the bread, right? You're giving something across, so to speak, from one person to another. You're handing it over. It's basically the same idea here in the verb to betray, but you see it's really not about literally handing over. It's more about this moral transgression, where literally you're going to hand, in Judas's example, you're going to hand Christ over to the people who come to arrest him, right? But again, this also implies the moral transgression of betrayal. Okay, so we'll talk more about that later. And by the way, we have a really good example in Book 4. We'll read преступление и наказание. Преступление means literally a stepping across, right? But instead of переступать would mean in modern Russian to step across something. But here we have prea, and we get this noun form преступление because that's a transgression in this kind of moral sense, right? It's not merely a physical stepping across, it's a moral transgression, a crime. Okay, anyway, more on that later. Фигура Иуды совсем темная. The figure of Judas is completely dark. Трудно понять, что происходит в его сердце. It's hard to understand what is going on, what's happening in his heart. Now, происходит, we've got two prefixes there. We're going to talk about that verb later. It means to happen, and you can see that it's a prefixed form of ходить. Как говорится, чужая душа потемки. There's a great пословица. It means literally, another person's soul is darkness, meaning you can't ultimately know what another person is thinking. Okay, let's see. We have, I believe, one more. No, we have still three more prefixes today. The next one is pods, which has to do with approaching. So let's look at another biblical painting here. This is a very famous one. This canvas is gigantic, and this artist, Ivanov, spent many years working on it, and you can see it today in the Tretyakov, or at the Tretyakov Gallery in Moscow, along with a lot of the sketches he did in preparation, studies he did in preparation for this monumental painting, which is called Явление Христа народу, the appearance of Christ to the people. So we see here John the Baptist, Ioanna Предтеча, he's called in Russian, meaning the forerunner. He's not normally called the Baptist in the Orthodox Church. He's called the forerunner, meaning he comes before Christ and prepares the path and so forth. And so John the Baptist has been telling the people that this person is coming, right? And now he's appearing, right? So this very dramatic moment we see in the distance there, Christos, right? And let's read the caption. Это огромная картина, right? This is a huge painting, над которой, above which, literally, or we'd say in English, on which, Ivanov работал около 20 лет, right? He worked on this painting for around 20 years. Он взял сюжет картины из Нового Завета. He took the plot, literally, sujet is the word you can use for a literary plot, but here we could say subject, right? His subject, from French, obviously. He took the subject of the painting from the New Testament. Иоанн Предтеча давно обещает народу, что придет великий человек Христос. Right? John the Baptist has long been promising to the people that a great person will come, namely Christos. А вот он появился, and behold, right? Вот, look, behold, he's appeared, и медленно подходит к народу. There's our verb, right? Подходит, our prefix pod. And we see that it's followed by k plus the dative. He's approaching toward the people, literally. He's coming toward the people. He's approaching. Все спрашивают друг друга, кто же он такой? Everyone is asking each other, who is this person, right? Кто же это? Who is this man? Что он им принесет? What will he bring them? Куда он их поведет? Right? I'm trying to use every motion verb I can think of, right? What will he bring them? Whither will he lead them, right? Where will he lead them, right? Okay, so pods, again, you see the mark up there. We're going to follow that. If we're going to tell what we are approaching, we're going to do that using k plus the dative in Russian. For example, турист подошел к кассе, right? The tourist walked up to the ticket window or whatever. Okay, so kassa, we get kassya, right? Dative. Туристы подошли к полицейскому. The tourists approached the policeman, and they're very naive, very foolish, right? You don't really need to be approaching policemen unless you have a very good reason to do so, especially in Russia. Okay, but by the way, that used to be more of a problem than it is now. I think it's gotten a lot more civilized than it was, say, 20 years ago. Okay, so let's make a few of these. Just make a few pairs to run up to. Подбегать, подбежать. Okay, same old stuff, same old system. To walk up to. Подходить, подойти. Okay, since this pod ends in a consonant, we've got to be careful. We were going to have to add a mobile vowel here to get подойти. To fly up to. Подлетать, подлететь. To swim up to. Подплывать, подплыть. Okay, to drive up to. Подъезжать, подъехать. Okay, there we need the hard sign after the "the" to indicate that it's hard despite being followed by the "yeah." Подъезжать, подъехать. To lead up to, okay, that's going to be the leading verb with a D. Подводить, подвести. Okay, you see the footnote there. This is we won't be doing again a lot of this right now, but pod, it means literally beneath, right? And by the way, you might wonder why. How can that mean to approach? Well, I think the idea is something like imagine a wall, and you approach the wall. Well, when that's over, you're at the foot of the wall. You're at kind of the base of the wall, and in a certain sense, you're beneath the wall. So that's at least one way to think about it. So pod, in any case, pod literally means under, and we've used it already as a preposition in that meaning. Now, it's also taken on this figurative meaning of doing something surreptitiously, right? Kind of under the table in this kind of sneaky way. So there's a nice example of, and you can probably imagine how what literally meant underneath, just in a physical sense, in a neutral sense, took on this more figurative meaning of doing something in a sneaky way. So that's the kind of thing we'll watch for later, especially in book 4. Okay, the dolphins often swim up to the boats. Дельфины часто подплывают к кораблям. Right, they swim up to the boats. The ship was approaching the space station. Okay, I guess let's use a flying verb here, right? Корабль. Okay, it was approaching, right? So we've got to use imperfective, past tense. Подлетал к космической станции. Подлетал. 3, the guide will lead you up to the monument, okay? Right, подводить, подвести, and this looks like a one-time future action, perfective. Экскурсовод подведет вас к памятнику. He will lead you up to the monument. By the way, look at экскурсовод. We can see that vod, there's that same root there. What does a tour guide do? He leads people around, right? So we've got that vod, that same root there having to do with leading. We could say that he leads excursions, right? Excursia and vod, that's how we ended up with экскурсовод. 4, the taxi drove up to our entryway. Okay, so it looks like perfective past tense. Taxi, which is neuter, подъехала к нашему подъезду. 5, some strange person walked up to me. Okay, again, one time, past, perfective. Какой-то странный человек подошел ко мне. Okay, watch the spelling there. Шел, right? We're going to need шел. We're going to need pod. And because we have подойти for the infinitive, we keep the о in all the other forms, and so we get подошел. 6, people often approach her and ask directions. Okay, that's present tense. We're going to use подходить. К ней часто подходят. Right, so we just use the third plural, meaning they, in the sense that people often come up to her and ask her directions. Or literally, they ask the way, right? Дорога. 7, I'll approach the professor after class and ask. Okay, perfective sequence, right? Future tense, future sequence. Я подойду, right? Now I think we're working by analogy to иду, я подойду к профессору после урока и спрошу. Okay, 2 more prefixes, and these are not the most common, but again, we're trying to learn all the basic prefixes, and they're kind of opposites, so we're going to learn them together. Z means up, and S means down. Look at a quick painting here. На качелях by Nikolai Yaroshenko. So they're on this, let's call it a swing set. It's some kind of a little rocking ride. It's not quite clear what exactly is going on here. It could be a seesaw or some kind of a swing. Солдат качается на качелях с молодой девушкой. Они взлетают и слетают, взлетают и слетают. Right? They're flying up and flying down, flying up and flying down. А он ей, по-видимому, что-то говорит. А что именно? Right? Apparently he's saying something to her, but what precisely? What precisely is he saying? Мы не знаем. Мы не знаем. Okay, so look at some examples here. Again, kind of opposites. Голуби взлетели с тротуара на крышу. They flew up And we get an откуда, right? They flew up from off of the sidewalk, from the sidewalk onto the roof, right? So we've got two na nouns, flat surfaces. And then they do the opposite. Голуби слетели с крыши на тротуар. They flew down from off of the roof, right? From off of the flat surface and onto the flat surface. Na тротуар. Okay, here's another spelling detail that we haven't discussed yet. This is our first prefix that ends in a z. And as we know, Russian, we see devoicing of consonants all over the place in Russian, and we talked a lot about that even back on like day 2. But we saw that Russian doesn't usually change the spelling, right? It just keeps, for example, the original z, and we have to know that we devoice it in a certain position. That is, we pronounce it like a s, like an s, right? Now, in this case, with this prefix, a prefix ending in z, Russian changes the spelling. So that's kind of weird, and I've even seen certain writers like Solzhenitsyn who kind of have their own ideas about what Russian orthography should be. He does not, he doesn't do this. He keeps the Z, right? So, but any normal person writing standard Russian, you would change the spelling from Z to S if that Z is followed by an unvoiced consonant. So look at the examples here. If we add z to the pair летать, лететь, well, L is not it's not unvoiced, right? So we just keep the z, and we get взлетать, взлететь. But let's add this to the motion by water verb, which starts with a p. Okay, p is unvoiced, so we're going to get a devoicing. And not only are we going to say s, we're going to write it, right? So we get всплывать, всплыть. Okay, meaning to swim up, or we could say, or better, to go up through water or to surface, like the submarine surfaced, right? It came to the surface. Now, watch the pair going by foot. Okay, here we have this funny pair, right? The ch is not voiced, so we get schodить, schodить, right? Where we do change the spelling. But then with the et, the perfective, right, we insert the mobile vowel, and so there's no devoicing right in front of the vowel, and we get зайти. Okay, so let's look at a few pairs and just plug in a form that makes sense. Взлетать, взлететь, right, to fly up. Мне надо выключить телефон, самолет, blank через 5 минут. I need to turn off my phone, the plane, blank in 5 minutes. Okay, sounds like future tense, perfective, right, one-time event. The plane will fly up in 5 minutes. Okay, what do you think? How do you think we should translate that? To take off, right? So again, a nice example of we see clearly what this verb literally means, and then based on context, we could maybe think of something else. But that's the standard way to say take off in Russian. The plane flies up. Right? Самолет взлетит через 5 минут. 2. Взбегать, взбежать. Взбегать, взбежать. Right? You're running up. Okay, the children, let's see, blank, по лестнице на второй этаж и вбежали в свою спальню. Okay, we have a sequence, right? You see the verb past tense, вбежали, right? So we're in the past tense, we have a sequence, perfective, right? They ran up the staircase onto the second floor, and then they ran into their bedroom. Дети сбежали по лестнице на второй этаж и вбежали в свою спальню. 3. Сбегать, сбежать, right? To run down. Let's say every morning the kids run down the stairs and run out onto the street. Каждое утро дети, okay, this is present tense, right? Они сбегают по лестнице и выбегают на улицу. 4. Сходить, взойти. The sun has already blank and everyone has already woken up. Пора в дорогу, right? Time to hit the road. Okay, so again, perfect past tense. Солнце уже взошло, взошло, right? It meaning it's gone up. The sun has risen, солнце взошло, и все уже проснулись. Everyone has already woken up. 5. Всплывать, всплыть. We literally in Russian, we watched how the submarine is slowly surfacing. I know we've talked about this before, I think, but it's very confusing. You may have forgotten it. First of all, in English, we'd say we watched the submarine surfacing or something like that. In Russian, you say that with a kak, right? We were watching how the blank is doing whatever. Now, on top of that kak construction, you've got to worry about tense. Uh, Russian, in examples like this, keeps the original tense, basically present tense, right? So it's kind of divorced from the past tense in the main clause, right? Well, we were watching. Okay, well, in that moment, what you are watching, right? So basically, in Russian, we're literally saying we watched how the submarine is slowly surfacing. Okay, and we get мы смотрели, как подводная лодка медленно всплывает. Всплывает. By the way, подводная лодка, that means an underwater boat, basically a submarine, right? Submarine, подводная лодка. 6. Сходить, сойти с ума. Here's an idiom you may have heard already. It means to something like go down from off your mind. If we just read that very literally, meaning you're off your rocker, right? You've lost your mind, you're insane, right? So сходить, сойти с ума means to lose your mind, and it's a very common idiom or expression. Вы что, с ума сошли, right? What, have you lost your mind, right? Вы что, с ума сошли, right? Детям нельзя есть столько мороженого. Right? Kids shouldn't eat that much ice cream. Have you lost your mind? Вы с ума сошли? Okay, хорошо. All right, that's enough for today. So we've learned several new prefixes, and again, beyond the meanings of the new prefixes and looking at a couple of details, it's really the same old thing. And tomorrow we'll be learning a few more. So nothing too surprising here for the next couple of lessons. Хорошо. Until next time, до свидания.